Ladies and gentlemen, the Gala invitation is out. We're going to tackle this real quick, and we're also going to touch on which of the characters you should be selecting when you get access to your Apex selection card on day 2. Now, there's been a lot of stuff going on with this game, and honestly, I'll just say it right now, I don't think this event fixes any of the big downsides that you feel when you're trying to farm gear, getting that Inferno mode, getting your shells, getting your Inferno gear for the first time. I don't think it solves any of the economy issues. I don't think it solves any of that stuff, which is still my major gripe and grievance with this game. But this game is officially launching in global, and soon we're gonna be able to see China, Korea, and Japan's reactions as they hit that, Hell 2 to Hell 3-4 Inferno breakpoint real soon, and I'm looking forward to covering that when that happens. Now, as far as this event goes, this is probably the best event that they've had in this game ever. So the first couple of things that you're going to be able to do is, I already picked it, but there's going to be Animus Regalia, where you can pick any one of these outfits for free. I don't know why it says pick any one new outfit. I guess it's new for you as a player. I didn't have access to Tiamat's outfit, so I picked that, but you get the access to either one of the recolors, right? For your boy Holden, Nahor, you have Fushu, you have Tiamat, you have Beotin, and then you have Kloss out here. You can pick an outfit for any of these characters for free as soon as you log in. That's cool. There's a celebration code that they're just going to give you right out here, Etheria 0925. That's going to be 10 free pulls. That's cool as well. You get to pick a Chaku skin for free, and I'm gonna pick the Game Boy, dude. All right, we'll pick the box. He's a Food X box. We'll pick that guy. I don't know why I got 2 things. That's cool though. And then on top of that, you're gonna get the 7-day login reward. And the big one here is on day 2. They're not even gonna make you log in for all 7 days. They want you to come in here and pick one of these following Animuses. Now, these ones right here, we're gonna touch on which one I think you guys should pick between Masia, Dokidoki, Mio, Heinrich, Lilium, and Shadow Sania. Because while they're not all created equal, and they also have their own drawbacks as well as positives, right? So the first one we're going to touch on here, let's just go look in, let's just look in the archive, right? Animus archive. Let's just check out Masia here. Now, Masia is the first one, so let's touch on this guy. He was like the first go-to, like, catch-all, kind of good in PvE, dominates in PvP character. Out of all of the ones here, he's going to be one of the 2 that I would say like fell off the most so far with the, the good old bloodbath meta. In PvP, you can still make him work, make him hit really hard, clean up fights with the addition of like someone like Plume on your team. You give him some big attack buff, you give him some big damage, you defense break people, and you might even be able to cleave through quite a few bloodbath characters in an offensive team, with Masia being a part of that, while being, moderately tanky and hard to remove himself with invincibility in certain matchups. He does have his use there in PvP still. In PvE, in a lot of ways, as the go-to, like, just kind of take it to whatever thing light DPS, he has been outclassed in pretty much every way, shape, and form by Yeli. And there's other characters you can take there. So I don't think I would personally pick Masia, even though he does have some uses still in certain situations, especially if you're like highly aggressive. There's just going to be other better options for you. Now, another option that you could think about here is going to be the legendary late great Shadow Sania. Now, if you're someone who's re-rolling into the game, you're just starting to play on global, you caught this video, Shadow Sania, the big thing about her is she's going to allow you to basically speed up your account progression in a lot of ways when it comes to doing certain content like Terramatan, or even doing like some of the hell difficulties, or going through some of the anti-sync echoes, or going through Ember Track. She's going to allow you to do things that you just should not be able to do yet, strictly because you haven't had the ability to acquire the amount of stats from gear and shells and things of that nature. She's going to allow you to skip all that due to her dot mechanic. There are other dot characters in the game, but she has the unique ability to detonate dots, so she's going to allow you to quickly farm up some higher tier gear and sort of skip some difficulty. She's going to make those bridges going from like Hell 2, 3, 4 to Inferno on like Terramatan a lot easier than if you didn't have her on your account. And basically, she's just going to save you thousands and thousands and thousands and tens of thousands of energy, being able to skip over trying to make minute updates to a lot of your modules and allow you to gain access to some very powerful red shells before you're able to, and just sort of skip that little hump. There's going to be like a little hump that everyone gets to around hell difficulty that she is very good at doing. The downside to Shadow Sania is after you're kind of over that hump and you have the gear to just defeat things quickly and efficiently with just traditional tanks and damage dealers and supports, you don't need to rely on this dot mechanic. She doesn't do a lot for you. So she is a very good unit if you're brand new and maybe you have one of the other characters, maybe you re-rolled, right? Maybe you already have, you know, Yelly or Mio or Dokidoki or Lilium or Lily or any of these other characters that we're about to talk about. She goes very well with those. The problem is you're eventually just going to not use her anymore. So that's something that you're going to have to, I don't want to say not use her anymore at all, but you're not going to use her in PvP and you're going to replace her with other characters in PvE. So basically you'll be using your selector on a character who's just going to save you tons of energy and tons of farming when you hit that breakpoint threshold. So she is very, very good for that. And that is something that you should think about if that's a character you want on your account because you want to skip farming a ton of stuff. Another character that's very efficient when we're talking about farming, but is also better in PvP is Lily. And Lily is someone that you can pick up, and she still is a staple in a lot of PvE content and PvP teams to this day. And that is because unlike someone like Shadow Sania, who allows you to skip spending energy directly because you're able to just defeat things faster, Lily sort of allows you to double down on your investment in whatever your number one DPS is due to her kit, right? The shadow trick, the twin trick, being able to allow her to sort of boost up, speed up, keep pushing your number one DPS on your team over and over and over again, giving them more turns, giving them more free attacks with their S1. We've seen stuff like this with Yelly, right? With Lilium, with Didding back in the day, where you're just like, yeah, my DPS is gonna go nuclear. I'm gonna do a ton of damage. Lily does that for you there, also resetting their skills so they can use their S3s to quickly farm up a lot of content if you have the DPS gear for your DPS. And then in addition to that, the other reason why she is so strong is because she is that universal where you can use her with a bunch of different DPSs. You can use her in a ton of different kinds of content. You can use her when farming all the different module stages for the most part, all the different shell stages for the most part, use her in a ton of PvP teams. And for that reason, where she's kind of just globally universal, you get a ton of value out of spending lattices on her, because if you spend, 4, 8, however many lattices to make sure that your levels are maxed out on your S1, your S2, your S3, if you so decline to do the S3 as well, you're gonna get full value out of there because you're not gonna put her back on the bench like you would with someone like Shadow Sania, which makes her an incredibly good character to pick up and possibly the best one in the long haul, even over someone like Shadow Sania. Now, the other ones here we're gonna touch on here, Mio and Heinrich. Mio just got hit with a little small indirect nerf with the change to the Codex of Magic Shell. Mio is basically, I don't want to say locked to PvP, but she is basically almost exclusively a PvP character. She does give speed buff up, but the thing that she really does is she allows basically herself to be a bridge for almost everyone else on your team. A bridge is a character that tends to be very fast in a PvP environment, like in a game like Etheria Restart. And the bridge is their first, the enemy team's right here, and your team's right here, and you need a way to get your team in front of the rest of your opponent's teams. And her S3 literally does that. It shoves somebody back, steals CR from everybody else, and gives it to your party, so she can shove everyone else on the enemy team back by either pushing them back directly or stealing their turn meter and giving it to the rest of your party, making it so that if your Mio goes first, possibly every single character in your party can go first as well, which is very nice. And that works very well with Codex of Magic, being able to S3 and then S3 again, but that's been nerfed out, so you can't just spam S3 all game. And her S2 is just nice, a little bit of wound, which helps in some bruiser matchups sometimes if you get rid of their cleansers or lock them down in some way with the freeze. And you have this can't heal as well as AoE freeze sort of combination there. Outside of that, that's kind of all she does. So she is a very powerful character And so if you're someone who has some of the other characters and you're looking forward to making your PvP team options a little bit better, Mio is someone that can do that for you. Her main downside is she doesn't really have a strip, so Bulwark in PvP can be a little bit of like a game over for you if you pick Mio and like two of your opponent's fast characters are also on Bulwark. You're not pushing them back, you're not stealing their turn meter, and that could potentially sort of just make her a dead character in that sort of draft RTA match. Another character that's very similar to Mio in the fact that she can bridge her whole team if she is fastest is Dokidoki. And Dokidoki is an incredible character who is well worth some of your lattice investment, and that is because she does do a multitude of things. She does have the ability to be that bridge if she's the fastest character in the game for you, right? She's not the fastest character stat-wise, but if you can load her up with some high rolls, she can be potentially pretty dang quick. And unlike someone like Mio who shoves everyone back and like, you know, CR turn meter steals and pushes your team up, she just directly pushes your team by a ton. And then in addition to that, she's going to give you a stacking damage and speed boost increase. And then in addition to having all of that offensive power of pushing your team up, doing all this cool stuff, giving them a stacking speed and damage bonus, on top of that, she also has the very important backup stacks mechanic that allows her to cleanse debuffs off of your party members as your party members would take a turn, and that is definitely worth it, especially if you get pseudocode her S1 maxed out where backup now purifies 3 debuffs. You can be like attack broken, defense broken, and stunned, and your character's like, I'm about to take my turn. Oh, I'll get rid of all 3 of those. I'm good to go now, which is very, very powerful in both PvE as well as PvP. And then her S2, hey, she's got the S3 for turn push. She has cooldown reduction that's spread out between everyone in your party as well. So she's a fantastic character. I've always said Dokidoki was good for these reasons, and it would just take time and investment for people to figure out that she was just going to be one of the best characters in the game for that reason, as she's not just a singular focus character. Like, for instance, we just compared to like Mia, who's like, I just want to push and do damage and that's kind of it. She's got this sort of secondary effect where she's a very powerful cleanser, and she's even got like a tertiary effect where she sort of just is a buffer for your team as far as damage and speed goes as well. So she's a very solid pickup there. Alternatively, on the opposite side of someone like Mio and Dokidoki, and Heinrich is like the debuffer extraordinaire. He's got one of the best debuffs in PvP right now in the game, which is the block debuff, which means that whoever has block can't be applied with any buffs. He also has the ability to dispel on any of the hits that he does, whether it's his S1, his S2, or his multi-hit S3, because of this Reaper's Gaze passive that's sort of just randomly attached to his S1 that allows him to dispel buffs. And also, in addition to that, he does have like a small thing, it's not broken, it's kind of neat, where he can apply this last words effect, increasing the crit damage that the enemy was receiving and also increasing the rate at which they're going to be crit as well. 4 stacks, for example, is equivalent to 28% additional crit damage and 28% additional crit chance. Although it's far and away like the reason why you run him. You really run him for the strips and you run him for the block on top of that. He's one of the best characters that has those 2 things in his kit, and he's just a solid pickup if you're missing someone for PvP to disable some of these like really big buff teams and tank down teams. He has also the unhealable wound debuff, so they can't receive healing there. So he's a very solid pickup if that's what you want. We also have to talk about the final one here in the form of Lilium. Now, Lilium is the de facto, I don't want to say best DPS in the game, but I'm going to go out and say that she's probably the de facto like best DPS in the game, if not tied with Yelly. And Lilium is out here because, well, you can build her incredibly fast. You can build her as a, you know, one-shot PvE character where you can just 1 or 2 shot a lot of the bosses with high-end gear, and one of the quickest ways to farm single target bosses in Etheria Restart, but also on top of that, she's a monster in PvP because she has the ability to no longer be turn meter pushed back. She can't get crowd controlled, no sleep, no stun, nothing like that on her. So she's just kind of like this unstoppable sort of force. One of the only things that an enemy can do to you is either go faster than your Lilium and just one-shot her and kill her, or, you know, give her a bunch of like attack downs and things like that to make her damage fall off. But outside of that, she's very, very powerful. She has self-attack buff, self-speed buff. She has HP seal for PvP as well. And then the last time they buffed her, they made her hit like an absolute truck and an absolute monster in PvP with her S3 as well as her S2, which also can hit incredibly hard. And then in addition to that, in PvP, if you take somebody down to 70% or lower, it's a guaranteed stun. They don't even get a chance to resist it. Or if you defeat them with this HP missing health, right? It's sort of like an execute. If you take somebody out with the S2, which is pretty easy to do in some circumstances, you can just stun the entirety of the enemy team and just sort of out tempo them with your Lilium there. So she's a fantastic character. If you need somebody to sort of just be the better Didding, right? At the end of the day, if you need someone to farm a ton of one-shot content, I'd pick up Lilium. If you need someone like Lily, if you don't have Lily, I'd probably pick her up if you are sort of brand new to the game. Dokidoki is a fantastic character that can sort of, you know, bridge a lot of the gaps, a lot of the holes that you might be missing in your account, because she is an excellent cleanser. She is an excellent opener. She's good in PvE. She's good in PvP. You can't really go wrong with her there. And then outside of those two, you have Mio and Heinrich, which are probably on the lower tier in my opinion. Not saying that they're bad, but they are more niche in what they want to do, right? Counter buffs with Heinrich, pretty good in PvE as well, or just be like a big opener in a lot of situations for your PvP teams in the form of Mio. Mio is very, very strong when you pick her and use her correctly, but she does have some downsides with Bulwark and maybe like the Hell Kid buff with the big shield, you can't control me and stuff like that. Lastly, Masia is probably the one I would, out of all of these ones, I would tell you guys to stay away from. With that being said, you let me know what character you're going to be picking down below. If you have all of them, I would just go for one that's going to give you the best stat bonus. And for me personally, I'm just going to pick up a dupe Lilium so I can get her first prowess and just get this 5% attack, HP, and defense scaling. It's going to make her do a little bit more damage. If you're on some sort of fast DPS build, it's going to help those PvE clears out a little bit, possibly as well. And then for PvP, you might hit some breakpoints where you're able to one-shot somebody you weren't able to before when they live with just a couple hundred health, but it also might help you live if you're on like a slower bloodbath Lilium setup as well, because you do not only get more attack, but you also get more defense and health. With that being said, God bless out there, guys, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.